But what we wanted to do as part of the wellness series was talk about nutrition, because everybody's always curious about that. But we wanted to go at it from an angle that was more kind of DLS specific and could really be used to all of our full benefit. So as a community of language learners, language instructors, just language centric people, we started thinking about, how can we best eat to prepare ourselves for what can often be an intense day of language learning. We all know that adult language learners it's a lot more difficult to learn a language as an adult. So any advantage that we can give ourselves when we enter the classroom or when we're teaching or whatever the case may be is definitely a positive thing. So anyway, so we'll get started. I will talk a good amount, but I do have some sections where I want you guys to kind of brainstorm and talk and share. And again, if you have any questions, just, jump right in, okay? Okay, let's see, Chris. What am I doing? Okay. So this is the very first thing I want to do. I want everybody to take like 2 minutes. If you've got a notepad or even just in your head, I want you to write down what you eat on like your average day. A lot of us, we're all creatures of habit, so we tend to eat the same things over and over again. But it's not going to be the same every single day, but write down your average day. So all of your meals, including any snacks, be honest about it. If you have dessert every day, that's fine. Be honest about that. And drinks, obviously water, but if you're a coffee drinker, a tea drinker, if you like soft drinks, whatever you have. So take 2 or 3 minutes and write that down. Let me see, there we go. Okay. Oops, sorry. And I am going to ask a few people to share, so don't be embarrassed. I've seen a lot of meals prepared at DLS, and I think we've got a lot of pretty healthy eaters. And we all have our vices, so. Okay, about 30 more seconds. Okay. All right. So I will call on people if I have to, but is anybody willing to share just briefly what a day in their kind of diet calendar looks like?
I will. I have a lot of, because I'm from India, so I eat a lot of Indian stuff like lentils for lunch and dinners, lentils, vegetables, cooked our style, and sometimes chicken curry and stuff like that. But for breakfast, like I would have fruit, banana, cereal, and sometimes pancakes with syrup.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, I do have sweets, Indian sweets, which are very sweet. So
Okay.
yeah, those kind of things, yes.
Now, has your breakfast changed like since coming from India or no? Or has it always been kind of the same?
Oh no, it has changed. It has become better actually, more nutritious, because we eat a lot of fried stuff in India.
Mm-hmm.
Fried breads and they are freshly made. So you eat a lot more.
Yeah, that'd be hard to resist.
Yeah. So it has become better.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, the sweet stuff, we'll talk about that in a minute, but the lentils are great. Curry with all the spices in it, that's fantastic for you. So, overall, that's definitely not bad.
We make, our vegetables are always with the ginger, garlic, and onions, which are very good.
Yes, those are all very good for you.
Yes.
Okay, so you get like a 4 out of 5. Anybody else willing to share? How about you, Jim?
Hey, for a breakfast, I'm now in a solidarity diet with Kip, so it's unusual, and she's looking to cure leaky gut and eating a very restricted diet. But I have a shake with kale, ice cubes, water.
Mhm.
Forgot what the seed is. Chia seeds
Okay.
and something, and a banana, and coffee with. I've now stopped drinking soy milk and switched to half and half and no sugar. And for lunch, it's some form of a salad. And for dinner, it's been last night was a sweet potato and a salad.
Okay. And do you find yourself snacking at all or doing dessert?
Every once in a while, we'll have some cherries while we're watching TV, and drinking a lot of water.
Okay. Well, this may be solidarity, but yeah, and I see people are writing in the chat. Go ahead and write if you want to share, but don't feel like sharing with everybody. You can go and share in the chat. That's not bad, Jim. You know, some people wouldn't be able to stay full enough on just a shake for breakfast, but I do know a lot of people don't actually eat breakfast. So you're doing pretty well there. Is anybody, speaking of which, does anybody not eat breakfast?
Me.
Okay.
Life does not. I don't usually have a routine, or like I don't have an average meal, but I will say that I'm always heavier on the later eating.
Okay.
I try to eat more healthy in the beginning of the day, and as the day goes on, I lose motivation,
you lose steam
and integrity.
I think that's common. It's for a lot of us. I'm kind of the same way. I don't typically eat until 1 or 2 in the afternoon. And I definitely am much healthier earlier in the day. I think it's a lot easier when you're out and about or just working, and you know you've got kind of a schedule to really be cognizant of what you're eating. But once the lights go down and you're watching TV, it's like all bets are out the door, right?
Right.
So you're definitely not alone in that. Okay, good. So keep adding that to chat. In the interest of time, I'll move on a little bit. Why is my thing seems to be freezing? There we go. Okay, so again, like I said in the beginning, we're looking to use our diets to optimize our language learning. If you see this quote here, it says, you know, this is talking about younger kids, but the message is the same. The research shows that students have trouble concentrating when they're hungry. You know, if they have had a nice, nutritious meal or snack, they're much more likely to be able to focus. And their attention span increases. So hopefully as adults, we're a little bit better about, you know, focusing when asked to focus just in general. But I know I'm sure all of us have been there where maybe we're really hungry. You know, maybe you're getting a little bit hangry and you're trying to focus on work or whatever you're doing, and you find that you just can't concentrate because you've got nothing in your stomach. So when you are hungry or when you eat really bad foods, you know, these core areas that you really need in order to optimize any learning, you know, concentration and focus, your attention span. If your teacher's trying to, like every little thing that comes up just distracts you. Having that clear head, I think we've all probably experienced the post-sugar fuzzy brain. You know, that's certainly not optimal for language learning. Again, the distractions, minimizing distractions, and the hanger, it's real. I don't really get it much myself, but I have people in my household who get very hangry, and it's, you know, it's not pleasant on either side. So, you know, we'll talk about it a little bit more, but whatever we can do to make sure that we're not getting to that point. It's kind of like if you've heard about what they say about dehydration. If you feel thirsty, that means you're already dehydrated, right? So if you get to the point where you're so hungry that you're just, you know, you're irritable, you can't concentrate, you are already well past the point where you should have been eating something. So, so these are what we need, the tools we need to optimize our language learning. So let's talk a little bit about the foods and how to eat to get to that point. So currently, I mean, you know, we all have different diets, and we all come from different places. So I'm not saying that everybody is influenced by this diet, but we're in America, right? The SAD diet, which I think is a very appropriate acronym is the Standard American Diet. Anybody care to chime in on what the SAD diet generally entails? Like, what's a typical American breakfast?
Milk and cereal.
Yep. And what kind of cereal? Or is that like hearty, fiber-rich cereal, or like Lucky Charms?
It's
Rice
Lucky
Krispies.
Charms, very sweet.
Yeah, exactly.
Iron
Yeah,
Cornflakes.
yeah, and a lot of those cereals. I mean, cereal is a whole kettle of fish because a lot of it is very good at marketing itself to sound very healthy. But if you actually look at the nutrition information, it's so full of sugar. But yeah, cereal. Eggs are a big part of the American diet, which are not in and of themselves bad, but quite often we'll top the eggs with cheese and bacon, and we'll have croissants, which again are not horrible by themselves, but the American croissants, part of the problem with the standard American diet is that we supersize everything. So our standard serving size is significantly bigger than most other countries. So you see the picture. That's obviously, most people aren't eating pizza for breakfast, and if you are, I'm not judging. But pizza, onion rings, chips, hot dogs, all of this stuff. It's okay on occasion, but the problem comes in when too many people are using these as the staples of their diet. They tend to be cheaper foods. They're easier to get. They're easier to make. And everybody likes them, especially if you have kids. I mean, my daughter's a pretty good eater and my son not so much. So if I said to him, hey, let's have a doll for dinner, he'd be like, what? How about a pizza? So these foods are all crowd pleasers. So this is kind of what has taken hold in the US is the standard American diet, which is far from optimal for language learning. Some statistics about the SAD, standard American diet, to make you kind of think. Processed foods make up close to 70% of the US diet. That if you kind of break that down, that's basically saying that at breakfast and lunch and probably a snack, dessert, those are all heavily processed foods. Maybe people have something healthier for dinner, but 70%, that's a pretty horrific number. Americans spend 10% of their disposable income on fast food. I mean, I'm not immune to it. Every once in a while, McDonald's calls my name. Not me personally, but it's easy for my kids. They'll eat it. They get a toy in the Happy Meal. There's a rhyme and a reason why these places are popular. And to their credit, certain fast food restaurants have gotten better about offering some healthier options. Wendy's has some stuff that's not quite as horrible. Taco Bell is a little bit better, I suppose. But still 10% of your disposable income on fast food, that's a tough number to swallow. Now this one, the average American consumes 130 pounds of sugar per year. That's table sugar. That's not natural sugar that comes in fruits or, tomatoes or whatever. That's extra sugar, 130 pounds. I don't weigh 130 pounds, but that's basically eating, I'm pretty close. So that's basically eating me in sugar in a year. That's a lot. More than 1/3, I guess more than 1/3 of adults are obese. I don't recall when these statistics were from, but I think it's actually higher than that now. I think it's actually closer to 50. I think it's 50 to 60% of adults in the US are considered obese. And children are not far behind. So, and that's not just overweight. That's a different category above being overweight. This is, very much endangering your health kind of statistics. And then the last one, in the early 2000s, I don't know what the statistic is now, but 60% of all middle school and high schools sold soft drinks and vending machines. Obviously, they're not forcing kids to buy them, but you give them access to it. Those are drinks that have literally no nutritional value, even the diet versions, and are just completely full of sugar. So again, the American breakfast, this is a pretty typical, you go to IHOP, you go to those buffets that Americans love. There it is. It's like, you know, it's not just pancakes. Pancakes and syrup every once in a while, great. I love pancakes, one of my favorite foods. But the problem is with the American diet is you add that to the potatoes and the bacon and the eggs. And pretty soon, I mean, you're talking, you know, 2,000 calories from your breakfast alone. And personally, I don't know about you guys, but when I am super full, all I want to do is sleep, or at very least just sit and do nothing. It's not a good feeling. It's uncomfortable. You're not going to be productive if you are super full, especially not when it's from these foods that are not actually doing anything. Guys, please go away. That are not doing anything for you. So let's talk about some foods that would be better options. And then one more point. You know, again, I don't typically eat breakfast really like a morning meal, but so it's not necessarily, it's more of a, you know, I don't do what I say, not as I do, because eating breakfast has been shown time and again to really help with that short-term memory, attention span, and to be honest, your mood in the morning. So eat something, even just a light breakfast in the morning before you go out, before you head to work, before you go to your desk in your home, can really help with that productivity, especially in the classroom. So what are we trying to do? Prevent that brain fog. Pippa, can you please go in the other room, sweetheart? Okay, so some of the basic ideas that we want to focus on, kind of the recipe for success. You can see here with the graphic, you know, obviously the foods on the red side, the brain busters, donuts, lots of sugar, cookies, ice cream. Those are not necessarily recommended. And then some foods on the right-hand side, which we'll talk about in a few minutes, that are better options. And you'll notice that they are all natural foods. They're all whole foods. So they're not processed. So minimizing added sugar, eating minimally processed food. Sorry, I've got a helper here. Going heavy on the vegetables, heavy on the whole grains, and then meat as a side dish. I personally don't eat meat myself. I prepare it for my family. It can be a very nutritious addition to your meals. Pippa, please, go play with the dog. Go play with the dog. However, it should not, to be really take full advantage of meat as a part of a nutritious diet, it should be a smaller part of your plate. So if you're thinking about your plate, instead of having like half of it be your meat, it should be maybe, you know, a quarter to a third of your plate. And then the rest of it should be those vegetables, those whole grains, if you have some fruit. But really think of meat more as a side dish or kind of a treat. And then if you like to drink alcohol, again, you know, no judgments. Red wine has been shown, antioxidants in red wine have been shown to be pretty beneficial in a lot of ways. But, you know, of course, over imbibing is not good. So you're not going to roll into the classroom the next morning feeling great if you have, you know, 10 beers at dinner, or you go out on the night, you know, for a night on the town with your friends. It happens to a lot of people. It's fine. You know, it happens occasionally. You know, roll with it, but by no means should it be a regular thing in your life, because it will affect you in very bad ways. Certainly when trying to focus on learning a language the next day, it's just going to wreak havoc with that. And then this last quote, this is something that I think a lot of us have probably heard. It's not something you have to necessarily subscribe to yourself, but the idea is good. And that, you know, eat breakfast like a king. If you know, a lot of us aren't really that hungry in the morning, and that's fine. But if you can force yourself to eat a little bit more in the morning, you'll probably find, Pippa, okay? You'll probably find that you are less hungry throughout the day. You'll fill yourself up, be, you know, nice and ready to tackle whatever you have to do during the day. Pippa, go sit over there, please. Lunch like a prince. You still are out and doing stuff, so you still need to fuel yourself properly. So go ahead and have a decent sized meal, and dinner like a pauper. I'm not saying you have to, you know, eat like a handful of berries for dinner and be done. But, you know, if you can work yourself to this point where dinner is your smallest meal of the day, you'll feel better. If you may notice, if you eat a really heavy meal at night, the next morning, you just don't feel great. You have that kind of uncomfortably still full feeling. You're a little bit sluggish, which is not good. It's not conducive to great language learning. And if you think about it logically, when you eat dinner, whatever time you go to bed, you're still, you're eating dinner to fuel for what? For sleep, right? So you're not fueling really for anything specific. You're fueling because it's just the norm. It's what we do. We all know we have dinner, you sit down with your family, whatever. But it just, try to train yourself. It doesn't have to be an immediate change of your routine, but if you can slowly shift the balance of your food intake over the course of a couple of weeks, a couple of months, whatever, to the point where your heavier eating is earlier in the day, I think you'll feel a big difference, and you'll feel like lighter and just more clear-headed in the morning when you're headed to the work or the classroom. So let's talk about some foods. This is my favorite. This is my favorite picture of the entire presentation. Any Game of Thrones fans out there? So my whole point is even Daenerys needed some coffee in the morning, well before Starbucks ever existed. But a lot of us drink coffee. Is there anybody here who doesn't drink coffee or tea in the morning?
Correct. I don't drink caffeine at all.
Sorry, I can't see. Who was that?
Anna Ballo.
Oh, you don't drink caffeine? Okay. Do you drink decaf tea or anything like that?
In the morning, no.
Yeah. No. Okay.
I'll drink herbal teas during the day or in the night.
But that's more, you probably enjoy the taste of it, right?
Correct.
Okay.
I also don't drink coffee or tea in the morning. So.
Is that Mindy?
Yeah, it's Mindy.
Okay. Hey. Okay. Is anybody like me, like if you don't have coffee in the morning, it just wrecks your day?
Yes, me.
Okay. Yeah, the thing, coffee, there's a lot of different science out there, but the main takeaway is that caffeine in and of itself it's not bad for you in moderation. Coffee actually contains some pretty powerful antioxidants that can help fight inflammation in your body. And it does, caffeine does increase your alertness. It does increase your ability to focus. Again, we're talking moderation. I definitely will admit that I drink too much coffee. But if you have, 1, maybe 2 cups in the morning, even if your body is so accustomed to it that you don't even notice the difference anymore, it does actually help increase that alertness. So caffeine is a yes in moderation. Generally it's not recommended that you drink it later in the day, in the afternoon. I do occasionally, but it can really mess with your sleep. So if you find that you're drinking a lot of coffee in the afternoons to stay awake, try to find something else, insert some exercise into your afternoon, because if you drink a lot of caffeine in those afternoon hours, it messes with your sleep, which just sets up a cycle. You wake up the next morning, you need more coffee, you're not as alert and focused as you could be, and your learning ability just, kind of tanks. So coffee, tea, caffeinated tea, Chris, in the morning is great. In moderation. And I will give a shout out here because Chris is on the call to green tea, because I think probably a lot of us have heard that it has a lot of those antioxidants as well. It's been linked with a lot of health benefits. You can get it in decaf varieties as well. I'm not a huge fan of the taste myself, but you can get also, matcha lattes. I've not had one, but I've heard they're fantastic. So I will have to try one next time I go to a Starbucks. But you can add some lemon to them, a little bit of honey, to make them more palatable if that's not your cup of tea, pun intended. Yes, so in moderation, as with most things. Sugar, this is the big one. This is definitely my biggest Achilles heel where diet is concerned. I like cookies, I like cupcakes, I like all those like bready sweets. And when you work, right now we're not obviously seeing each other, but when you work in an office, and not just DLS, I'm sure many of us have worked in other offices where it seems like there's constantly food. And not, I mean, DLS, we have like good food, you know, healthy food from our potlucks and our lunch, our cultural events, et cetera. But, you know, there are certain offices where you will go in and there's always, you know, donuts or cake. There's always a reason to celebrate, or people will bring in food that they don't want to have at home because they don't trust themselves and be like, here, I'm going to throw all these sweets at my coworkers so I don't have to deal with them. You know, while it may feel great in the moment to eat that, you know, chocolate bar, that donut, whatever, that table sugar is just not going to do anything for you. So, you know, again, like I was talking about, the 130 pounds of sugar that the average American consumes each year, and that's average, remember. There are people who are consuming a lot more than that. You know, I'm not saying that you should not eat any sugar. Glucose is sugar, but that is natural sugar. So you get that from things like fruit, fresh squeezed juices, and that's good. That's your brain's natural and preferred source of energy. So I will never tell you not to eat fruit. I love fruit. You know, it's in moderation too, though. You don't want to eat you don't want to have your entire breakfast and lunch be only fruit, but you don't need to stay away from the natural sugar. We're talking more about like adding sugar to your coffee, adding sugar to your tea, eating that donut. Again, on occasion, it's fine. Don't beat yourself up too much because we're all human. Or, you know, if there are donuts on the table and you just really you just can't pass the opportunity up, take a small bite, like cut out just a really small bit of it. Take your time, savor it, and then walk away. That's the hardest part sometimes, is just walking away from that. So glucose, fine. That extra table sugar, not so much. Okay, eggs. Oops. Okay, again, like I said earlier, eggs are a pretty big part of the American diet. They get a bad rap sometimes because of the cholesterol. If you have serious issues with your LDL, that's your low density lipid cholesterol, that's the bad cholesterol, you know, talk to your doctor. You may not want to eat too many eggs, but on occasion they're probably fine for you. But if your cholesterol is normal, eggs can be a good source of the good cholesterol, but they also have a lot of the vitamins B6 and B12, which are very essential for all people, but particularly if you're somebody like me who doesn't eat meat, or you just don't eat a lot of meat. B12 in particular is very difficult to get from non-meat sources, so eggs are a natural source of those. So you know, that's a good way to kind of fill in those nutritional holes. Choline, they also have folate. These help regulate moods, help maintain focus. But, you know, again, like I've been saying with everything, it's a little bit of moderation. You don't want to eat like 2 or 3 eggs every day, but eat them 3 to 4 times a week. You know, have a hard-boiled egg, a scrambled egg, whatever you want. They're incredibly versatile, and they're also cheap. Well, they're a little bit more expensive now, I've noticed, at the stores since coronavirus hit, but they are one of the cheaper natural protein and energy sources you can find. Now, the trendsetter. Who has not heard about avocado toast? I mean, it's delicious. Avocados, obviously we all have our own preferences, but I'm not sure I know anybody who truly hates avocado. It's also pretty versatile, you know, guacamole, put it on toast. You can use it in spreads, in sauces. And avocado is a fantastic source of monosaturated fat, which is the good fat. You know, again, you still want to you don't want to eat a whole avocado every single day necessarily, but have like a quarter of an avocado or a half of an avocado. And that monosaturated fat enhances blood flow to your brain. So it keeps things moving a lot smoother up there, helping you, which is obviously a boon for language learning or any kind of learning. It's also been shown to lower that bad cholesterol by reducing the buildup of plaque in your arteries. So, you know, again, moderation is key. And to be honest, avocados are pretty expensive most places. So most of us probably can't afford to eat our weight in avocados, but they're definitely a yes, unless you don't like them, but they are good in moderation. Now, blueberries, these are one of my favorite foods personally, and it was very hard to overdose. Pippa, shh, please. It is very hard to overdose on blueberries, and they are truly nature's superfruit. They do, the issue is that if they're not in season, they can be quite expensive. So it's not always feasible or realistic to eat them very often, but frozen blueberries are just as nutritious because they are frozen at the point where they are the most ripe. So get some frozen blueberries, throw them into, yeah, the dog, you guys caught it. Angelica caught it. Throw some blueberries into a smoothie, throw them on your yogurt and your cereal, on your oatmeal, eat them plain. They are one of the best sources, of antioxidants. Oh my gosh, what am I doing? Best sources of antioxidants. They reduce inflammation. Inflammation is kind of the root of a lot of problems in our bodies, especially in our brains. So blueberries, along with a few other foods like walnuts, wild salmon, olive oil. These are foods that have been shown to have a dramatic effect, positive effect on memory retention and delaying cognitive decline. So, in the morning before you go to the classroom, having some kind of breakfast with some whole grains, a little bit of protein and some blueberries, it's kind of the ideal. Again, if you can get them, but they are very delicious as well. So they're not too hard to palate. No, not right now, after this. You get the leash for me then. Okay. Now I mentioned salmon is one of the best foods over there. I mentioned salmon is one of the best foods for your brain as well. Salmon, fish, different types of fish have, I'm sorry, one second. Okay, sorry about that. The joys of working from home with kids. Anyway, so fish, particularly wild-caught fish, is one of the best natural sources of omega-3 fatty acids. So those are fatty acids that your body doesn't really naturally make, but they are building blocks for your brain. They build the nerve connections. They have a protective quality for your brain cells. They help prevent that brain fog. People who eat fish 2 to 3 times a week, there have been many studies showing how that kind of diet can help prevent that cognitive decline as we age. So, memory enhancement, all of that. It's not to everybody's taste. I know fish is a little bit harder. Sardines are a really, really good source of those omega-3 fatty acids. I personally can't eat them, but a lot of people can. But there are more or less intense flavored fishes, like salmon and trout. Unfortunately, there's some really good ways to make them, to prepare them. They're a great dinner option. Have some salmon the night before a big test, and come in the next day feeling great. The one thing I will say about salmon is do not be that person at the office who heats up salmon in the communal microwave, because people will know, and they'll hold it against you. It's a potent fish, but it is very good for you. I'm a vegetarian, but technically I guess pescatarian, because on occasion that is the one type of meat I will eat because I know it is so good for me. But try to get wild caught fish if you can, because they have less, the farmed fish have some chemicals added, and they're typically not as healthy. Okay, snack time. Who doesn't love a good snack? I personally am much more of a grazer. I'm not really a huge big meal person. But when you find 3 o'clock rolls around and you're tired, kind of dragging, your mind is starting to wander, and you're just, your attention span is shot, instead of berating yourself or just giving up, you might need a snack. Make sure you're drinking enough water, certainly, but some kind of snack that contains a little bit of protein, something to kind of pep you up without dragging you down, can really help you refocus your energies in the classroom. So a handful of nuts. I mentioned walnuts. Those are really one of the healthiest snacks you can have. You know, almonds, why am I blanking here? Cashews, macadamia nuts, anything, pistachios, whatever, you know, whatever type of nuts you like. Just make sure you only eat a small handful because they are heavy in calories. And they do have quite a lot of fat, but it is mostly that monosaturated good fat. Chocolate, this is good news for all of us chocolate lovers. You know, it is the dark chocolate. The darker, the better. I know that's not to everybody's taste, but if you can get at least, you know, 70% or higher is the best, but, you know, anything over like 50 or 60%, those are going to be the chocolates that have the most antioxidants, which do help sharpen your brain, improve your focus. And, you know, it gives you a little dose of sweet without going overboard. Popcorn is actually one of the best snacks you can have. It's just full of dietary fiber, which helps keep you full. Vitamin E, which has been tied to memory, improved memory and the ability to focus. I'm not talking about the movie theater popcorn, not that we can get that right now anyway. So, you know, go light on the butter. A little bit of salt is fine, but don't overdo it. You know, if you can pop your own, some of those microwave bags have some pretty shady stuff in the linings. But if you can pop your own, just maybe dash a little bit of like maybe garlic salt or something on it. You know, it's a really solid snack that will keep you full for minimal calories and lots of fiber. Pumpkin seeds are a great one. Those brain boosting fatty acids and some antioxidants. Oranges, vitamin C has been shown to keep your blood sugar down, which helps control that hangry feeling we sometimes get. And of course, everybody knows vitamin C is just generally good for boosting your immune system. Does anybody else have what? Okay, in a minute. Anybody else, like, what are your guys' go-to snacks at the office? Anybody?
I like that we buy the snacks from Instacart because we get a lot of fresh fruits, and I know that everyone enjoys a healthy snack.
Okay, good. Anybody else? Chocolate covered almonds, yes. Anastasia, those are, I mean, if you can do dark chocolate covered almonds, that's kind of the best of, you know, both worlds. Yeah, oranges, rice cakes. Rice cakes are fine. There's not a whole lot of nutritional value in them, but one thing you can do to really increase the fullness factor while staying. Okay, then go get water out of the bathroom. You can spread a little bit of maybe nut butter on some rice cakes, like almond butter. You like almonds and rice cakes, Anastasia? Then spread a little almond butter on your rice cakes, or a little bit of hummus. You know, garbanzo beans are incredibly healthy for you as well. So add a little bit of protein to those rice cakes to help keep you full. So, you know, snacking is not inherently bad. Sometimes, you know, it always depends on what diet you're looking at and, you know, where you're getting your information. But, you know, some sources will villainize snacking. You know, there are different schools of thought on how many meals you should eat a day, but generally speaking, if you're eating even, you know, 2 or 3 meals a day, you're not overloading yourself with calories, etc. at those meals. Snacks are really, well-timed snacks can really help keep you going without crashing, help you keep that focus, help you keep your energy up so you can actually, you know, so at 8 o'clock in the morning, you're just, you know, or sorry, at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, you're just as productive in the classroom as you are at, you know, 8 or 9 in the morning. So don't be afraid to snack. Okay. Practice makes perfect. All right, everybody unmute yourselves. Let's talk a little bit about what we can do, what replacements we can do. So instead of, let's think about breakfast. Knowing that the standard American breakfast is very heavy on, you know, unsaturated fats and sugar. So instead of like bacon and eggs, what can we do to the eggs to make them healthier instead of adding bacon?
Add vegetables.
Yeah, saute some vegetables in them.
Yes. Like mushroom,
Um,
onions, and
mhm.
bell pepper, yep. And not
Yeah,
have cheese.
definitely. Anybody else?
My standard one is to add a little bit of milk, and I fry it without any onions or like just plain milk, eggs, salt, and nothing else, and seems to be the kids' favorite.
Okay. Yeah. You can add a little bit of cheese. Throw a little bit of pungent cheese like blue cheese, gorgonzola, something in there. It gives it a little more flavor punch. Quite often, if one of the biggest issues, so processed food, in addition to having no nutritional value, a lot of it really, if you think about it, is quite bland. There's not a lot of spice. There's not a lot of real genuine flavor. You'll find that if you eat a lot, like let's say you had a cookie that was this big, and it was just like there was nothing special about it. It was kind of bland, but you eat it all because it's there. And then you just feel gross because you just consumed all that sugar, versus a little teeny tiny cookie that is homemade, has, little bits of walnut, some cinnamon, maybe a little bit of, I don't know, coconut flakes, something that, a lot of flavor, but in a very small serving size. That is going to satisfy you just as much, if not more, than that massive cookie, because those powerful flavor sensations, those signal to our body that we're eating, that we are going to be full. So adding up something with a little bit of extra flavor, you can throw some garlic in there, some, like we were talking about, the onion. But yeah, bacon, probably not the best choice. You could have eggs on a piece of whole grain toast. There are lots of options with that. Buttermilk pancakes, and I'm not going to slander them too much because I love them, but they are not the healthiest. So how might we improve that meal?
Add blueberries.
Yeah?
Making crepes.
Yeah? Those are a lot thinner, right?
Yep.
We could throw some, my favorite thing about making pancakes myself is that you can throw pretty much whatever you want in there and you're not going to ruin them. So you can throw some, Jim, you're talking about chia seeds, throw some chia seeds, some flax seeds. You can replace some of the basic, the unbleached white flour with, whole wheat flour or buckwheat flour. You can throw, sometimes I will throw kefir into my pancakes, and it gives a blueberry flavor, gives it a little bit of extra nutritional value, and just make them a little bit smaller. So maybe have, 2 normal sized pancakes as opposed to the Mondo stack. White toast with jam. I mean, obviously that's not a good choice. What would be the better choice?
No jam and put salmon on it. Smoked salmon.
Yep. The much maligned avocado toast would be a better option, right? Frosted Flakes and orange juice. What's a better choice than that?
Sugar flakes.
Mm-hmm.
Less sugar. But why orange juice? I mean, why is it bad to drink orange juice?
Well, so yes, I was thinking about that as I put that there. So the thing with orange juice is it's not bad in and of itself. Depends on the variety that you get, and it depends on how much you drink. If you can get some of the, obviously fresh squeezed is preferable, but we don't all sit and squeeze a lot of juice in the morning. I certainly don't. But look for brands that have, no or very little added sugar. Just read the nutritional label. It's not bad to drink the juice. It can be a really good way to get a serving of fruit, but just be aware that there are lots of brands out there. Tropicana is not necessarily the best. Some people might consider Orangina to be orange juice, which most decidedly is not. Just be aware of what you're buying. You could also have oatmeal instead. Oatmeal that doesn't have a lot of added sugars to it. That's a great source of whole grains and incredibly filling, and also quite cheap, similar to eggs. You can buy a whole thing of oats, quick cook oats even, so you don't have to spend a lot of time for like $2 at the store, and that you can get a lot of mileage out of that $2 thing of oatmeal.
But
Um,
oatmeal has a lot of calories.
Oatmeal? It's
Oatmeal
kind
has
of
a lot of calories.
it depends. 150 calories per half a cup. That's a pretty standard nutritional breakdown. And if you think about it, once you mix the water and stuff in it, it can keep you pretty full, water or milk. It can keep at least 1 or 2 servings keeps me pretty full. I think oatmeal is one of those things that a lot of it depends on what you add to it. Now, Snickers and chips, obviously, we talked about some of the other snack options. I mean, Snickers they're one of my favorite chocolate bars personally, and they do have peanuts in them, which are healthy, but definitely not the best choice. Chips, you know, there are a lot of options out there that claim to be better, like the veggie chips, etc. But those are really no better than the other options. So just try to steer away from those. If you must have something like a little bit salty, you know, even a few pretzels dipped in like hummus or salsa. Salsa is really good for you, especially if it's got some like garlic and onions chopped up. Low calorie. Tomatoes are great, lots of antioxidants. So if you're looking for a dip for some kind of, you know, pretzels or whole grain crackers, go with salsa every time. Cheeseburger and fries, last one. How might we improve upon that for dinner? And you know, to be fair, I know sometimes that is what you want, and that's fine. Don't deprive yourself, but don't make it a regular habit. So on a regular basis, how can we improve upon that?
Portobello burger?
It's one of my favorites. What about the fries? What can we do instead?
Like sweet potato wedges?
I know. Baked kale.
Yeah, baked kale. Well, and Jim was talking about sweet potato. You can do homemade sweet potatoes. You can make homemade sweet potato fries. You know, just cut them up, roast them in your oven a little bit, add a little salt. Much healthier than your average fries from a fast food chain. And as Lindsay was saying, portobello burgers, if you've not had one, portobellos are actually remarkably filling. They're pretty meaty as far as mushrooms, as far as any kind of vegetable goes. So, you know, and you know, you can have a cheeseburger on occasion. Just let's keep it not like the Big Mac, you know, like a smaller size, and just not that often.
So how do you feel about Impossible Burgers or Beyond Burgers?
Yeah, you know, I've had all of them. There's a lot of stuff in them that's not necessarily natural and the nutritional exchange is not there for me. I understand what they're trying to do. I personally don't miss the taste of meat. So for me, I don't need a veggie burger that tastes exactly like a real cheeseburger. But they're really not that much healthier. There's a lot of stuff in there that's not going to do you a lot of favors in the long run. So if you really need some kind of veggie replacement burger, go with the portobello mushroom or go with like a black bean burger. You know,
I'm not sure, just wonder, like, I'm not sure, like, it might be very Russian, but I think for years my standard breakfast was homemade cottage cheese. So I don't like the American, it's salty, it's like different texture, but
yeah.
I think this is quite nutritional, and I usually just eat with yogurt and berries. You can just add whatever you want and change the variety just like by changing flavors. And so
Yeah. I kind of know the type of cheese you sort of are talking about, and yeah, that's a lot of American cheese that we would use on like a cheeseburger or something is pretty not, you know,
it's
pretty
not
low
a
on the
cheese, it's like
value.
what you make from milk, but by first making it sour and then boiling it. So I think
Right.
that's also what I'm talking about, but it's not super common in the United States.
I believe that, yeah. Yogurt with berries, that's always a good option. You know, steer clear of the yogurt, has a lot of added sugar, of course. Greek yogurt, Icelandic, skyr, those will keep you fuller for longer, and they tend to have a little bit less sugar. So, but yeah, that's always a really good option for anything, for a snack, for breakfast, for whatever. Okay, let's move on in the interest of time. So this is kind of a sneak peek. You know, we're going to be holding another series of 30-minute webinars going over the blue zones of the world. So what are the blue zones? These are the 5 regions of the world. There's a guy, Dan Buettner, he did this whole study on, traveled the world, lived in different regions for a certain period of time, studied their lifestyle, their diet, etc., and found that these 5 regions of the world have not only the longest lifespans in the world, but they also have kind of the healthiest elderly population in the world, as in other words, people, when they die at age 105 or whatever it is, more often than not, they're not dying from from dementia or heart disease. They're dying from just natural causes. So kind of happier, healthier, longer lifespans in these 5 regions. So we do have one in the US, it's in California, also in Costa Rica, Greece, Japan, and Italy. Simona's the homeland there, Sardinia. So we're going to be talking over the course of 5 shorter webinars about what is specific to each of these regions in terms of both diet and lifestyle. I'm sure we obviously, as a tremendously multicultural organization, we have people from all of these areas. So a lot of us are probably already pretty familiar with what the basic cuisine is from these countries, but there are specific parts, specific aspects to each of these regions that we can all try to emulate to, make our lifestyles healthier, improve our diets, etc. So a little bit of a sneak peek of options beyond the sad American diet. Now, just a few kind of recipes to get your brain moving, as we've been talking about. And these come from actually the Blue Zone Diet cookbook. Pretty basic black bean breakfast burritos. I personally eat a lot of beans. Rice and beans is one of my favorite meals in the world. You can top them with avocado. Those spices, the cumin, chili pepper, turmeric, garlic powder, whatever you want to add. Those spices are all really good for you. They've got a lot of antioxidants. They help fight that inflammation, and they're a really good way to add flavor without increasing the calorie count or adding fat. So, black bean breakfast burritos, whole grain tortillas, you can put whatever you want in them. But that avocado trendsetter superfood I was talking about, and I didn't talk about obviously every single healthy food in the world today, but beans are also a really good fiber-filled source of protein that we can add to our diets. So give this one a shot. You can eat it for breakfast, lunch, dinner, whatever. I talked about oats, steel-cut oats, plain rolled oats, preferably not the Quaker oats that are already full of sugar and chemicals. So this is kind of, oats are great because you can add what you want to them. So balsamic vinegar adds a little bit of a twist to it. A teeny bit of brown sugar, a little bit to just sweeten it up. Add those flax seeds, hemp seeds, chia seeds, berries, dried fruit, whatever you want. Add some nut butter, anything you want to kind of up that nutritional value. You can make it savory by putting a fried egg on top or putting some avocado on top. But this one also came from that Blue Zone Diet cookbook. And then last but not least, we all, a lot of people go through some kind of smoothie phase in their life. I've been through it. Smoothies are a great way to make a meal that you can take with you. If you do it properly, you can definitely make them filling enough that they'll last you through the course of the morning, especially if you're somebody who's not that hungry in the morning to begin with. I will say I would not rely solely on smoothies or juices. It's not gonna quite get you nutritionally where you need to be. But a nice smoothie in the morning with some greens, a little bit of milk, a little bit of fruit, and a little bit of protein is a great way to start the day without filling you up. You're not going to go into the classroom or work feeling weighed down and like you're just already climbing a mountain. You want to go into the classroom in the morning feeling light but satisfied. So, all right. 326, perfect.